So, Chris Mannix, we took a tiny hiatus from jumping on the Warriors bandwagon to all jump on Houston's bandwagon for a bit, and then we saw Steph Curry come back, and we were like, what were we doing for those couple of weeks? Do you think the Warriors reestablished themselves as favorites to win the title after what you saw last night?
Yeah, I mean, I never took them off that kind of pole position, knowing who Steph is and what he brings to the table. So I always thought they were the favorites. Beating them 4 out of 7 was going to be virtually impossible. What I took away, though, from that game was what a blown opportunity for New Orleans. I mean, Anthony Davis is supposed to be this superstar in the league. The fourth quarter, Anthony Davis was a no-show, while Kevin Durant was going off, while Draymond Green was going off. Where was Anthony Davis in this one? So, yeah, I mean, look, give credit to Golden State. Steph's back right now. I don't see how New Orleans wins any more than one game in this series. But this is a game, Game 2, when they're going to look back and say, wow, we had a chance. We had a chance with Klay Thompson missing, with Steph Curry just coming back. Anthony Davis did not show up. 5 points in that fourth quarter. That killed them.
Yeah, and with New Orleans, especially the first half, when you get through that initial burst, that crowd, Steph coming in, everyone standing up, because you look at right at halftime, that game was there for them. If you like, because you have to steal a game. And it wasn't as if Golden State was playing awful. The Pelicans were playing good, too. They had made some adjustments offensively, what they were going to try to do to them, the way they were attacking them. But as you mentioned, man, when they got to crunch time, which was AD time, and Nick and I talked about this the last couple of days, unless he had a stat line very, very similar to LeBron, like 25, that's a subpar night based on what we need him to do with that lack of bench. We need him 35. 38. And what you're saying, if he was able to have that push there at the end, that's where he would have had to be for the Pelicans to pull this off. Nick.
Listen, so to answer the question quickly, because I was probably early on the Rockets as far as, and I might end up being wrong, by the way. We'll see. I'm not ready to say the Warriors, okay, clearly they're the favorites now. The Rockets have home court. The Rockets are as healthy as they've been all year. The Rockets are also looking wildly impressive in this postseason, just like Golden State is. So I don't want to be too reactionary to that. I would still, in the Western Conference Finals, pick the Rockets by this much. So I still do feel that way. But about your point about last night's game, you're totally right. Like, Anthony Davis, I understand Draymond Green is Defensive Player of the Year, defending, and arguably should have been for the last 3 years. But that's because he can guard 5 positions. It's because of what he allows you to do switching. It shouldn't be because he can shut down the best big man in the NBA. Anthony Davis, when guarded by Draymond Green, was 4 of 13. When guarded by everyone else, Anthony Davis was 8 of 11. And in the fourth quarter, you're right. I said yesterday on the show, and I think we all agreed, that the only way the Pelicans had a shot to win this series is if they left Golden State one apiece. Because I know Charles Barkley and everyone says, a series doesn't start till the road team wins a game. Well, guess what? You're skeptical if someone can beat Golden State 4 out of 7. Nobody can beat them 4 out of 5. Yeah. Not happening. And that's now the position the Pelicans are in. This game was 86-85. With 7 minutes left, or 7.5 minutes left. They had the opportunity.
That's Davis time. That's when, look, we had this, after the first round series, the conversation had shifted back again to, is Anthony Davis the most dominant player in basketball? Is he the best player in basketball? Well, the fourth quarter of last night's game, we saw the best player in basketball right now. Kevin Durant had 15 in the fourth quarter. Right now, look, we can have it's a subjective conversation, I get that. But 15 points for Kevin Durant when it mattered in the fourth quarter. Anthony Davis didn't even lead his team in shots in the fourth quarter. That was Rondo with 8. He finished with 5 points, really only 2 of them during a consequential period of that game before it got out of reach in the final 3 minutes of it. Anthony Davis needed to play big in that game, and Davis didn't, and that's what cost him.
Let's talk about Steph Curry coming back last night. Nick said earlier he was 100% the difference in that game. Not that we were worried before when he came back, but it seems like everything is clicking out. They're 100% healthy. The Pelicans have a shot to get another game at this point?
At home, yeah, they do. They play pretty well down there. And look, as we've seen throughout the playoffs and historically, I mean, Game 3 is when you get your team's best shot. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Pelicans come out with a sense of pride and with, they're a team that has good defensive game plans that played pretty well for most of the game last night. I think they get game 3. But Nick's right. Like, you don't beat Golden State 4 out of 5. You get that game 3. You lose game 4. This series ends back in Oakland in game 4.
And we can't act as if they didn't need Steph to play the way they did.
They did.
Then they need him to play that way.
Clay didn't play well at all.
No. Draymond had a tremendous game, and they needed that KD to take over in the fourth quarter. So I still feel as if they have a chance. Their bench being short, especially as longer the series goes, the more you try to eat in, or the more that bench is exposed for the lack of help that they provided for this team.
And I'll get to Steph in a second. I want to give KD credit because this was a series going into it. You asked yourself, who do the Warriors have that can guard Anthony Davis? And then you asked yourself, who do the Pelicans have that can even kind of guard Kevin Durant?
That was a bigger question for me.
Right.
I knew they'd have to stick Holiday on him, and
right.
that was
the height difference. Holiday's an outstanding defender, but he's 7 inches shorter.
And it's how KD plays.
Right.
Because KD can bring the ball up, he can cross you over, shoot the 3, but also he can get the ball on the elbow, face the bucket, and he's great at just shooting right over top of you.
So, and I'm going to let you slide on, I assume something happened in your brain for a second when you said the best player in basketball. Maybe you meant the Western Conference, maybe you meant the series. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying there, but I'll let it go. But as far as Steph Curry goes, just show what it was with and without him last night. And by the way, it's not like he played 38 minutes. Played 28 minutes. The Warriors played 20 minutes without Steph Curry. Their offensive rating with him was 130. Without him, it was 72. They took 17 threes with him on the court. They were 3 of 17. With him off the court, pardon me. They were 43% with him on the court. Like, that was the difference last night. Like, KD was excellent. Draymond was excellent. But if Steph was out for both games of the first 2, like we thought he might be. We thought going into the series, the first 2 games in Golden State, they're not going to have Steph for either one. Then it would be 1-1. It wouldn't have mattered that Anthony Davis only had 25 and 10. And on Davis, like this is where he's at in the league. It's a compliment to him. It's a compliment that you can have 25 and 10 or 25-15, pardon me, and we can say you need to do more. Because he absolutely needed to do more. He needed to have a game where we're having the discussion, is Anthony Davis the best player in the world?
Look, he had an all-NBA superstar first half. And after that, it was largely non-existent. He went into that fourth quarter with 20 points, only had 5 in that period. And one thing I liked about Durant, I mean, you mentioned the mismatch that he had against Jrue Holiday. You look at the fourth quarter of that game, they exploited that mismatch. They went to the post. They allowed Durant to shoot over Holiday, whoever they put on him. Where was Anthony Davis in those situations? There's a size advantage that Davis has when he's on Draymond Green. I thought Draymond was in Davis's head in that fourth quarter. I thought he played more physical. I thought he wanted it more. That's the kind of game where if you're Davis, you have to put your team on your back and you have to carry them through some of those stretches. He didn't do it in that game. That's going to cost them the series.
There's some things about Toronto because they did dominate for the greater part of the game. But there's some things as far as Dwayne Casey, what he did at the end of that game, the lack of managing the timeouts, being called on a 5-second out of bounds, not being able to get the ball inbound. Like those kinds of things to me against the Cavs are criminal. Now, if this storyline played out and it was the 76ers, if it was the Celtics and the Raptors, I wouldn't be as worried. But against the Cavs, man, I have seen this team. I've seen them against the rest of the NBA, and I see them against the Cavs. It's like 2 different franchises. So I'm more concerned about who they allowed to do this to them because it's hard to win a series when you look back on it and say, well, I blew one game already. Because that game, they blew that game.
And you said at the beginning of the show, it was one of the most important games, all things considered, in the history of this franchise. Certainly in this version of the franchise.
Yes.
The Rosen-Lowry version. The only
I would
game
say this series is. I don't know if that game.
Well, it depends on how the series plays out.
Right.
If it plays out the way I believe it's going to,
yes,
they will look back to game 1. If they go back to win it, sorry about that. If they go back to win it, then obviously that's not going to be the case.
How do you believe it's going to play out? I'm not so sure. I feel like I don't know.
I will be very surprised if this goes more than 5 games.
Oh,
but hold on. Let me just say something. Because I'm so excited and I'm so happy you said what you said. Just like I was happy about Cris yesterday talking about this Raptors team, because we are going to hopefully remove some of the narrative a few weeks from now. Because what I don't want to hear when the Cavs win this series is about the weak East. The Raptors are the 3rd best team in the NBA all year long. They are healthy. They are rested. They have home court advantage. If the Raptors don't win this series, I'm sure people will try to make it about, the Raptors are frauds. Maybe it's just that, maybe the Cavs will round into form. Maybe that's going to happen. And you can say, and I agree with you, Jeff Green's not going to have another game where he's 4 of 4 from the field, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. I would bet LeBron James doesn't have another game where he takes a combined 36 free throws and shots and only makes 13 of them. LeBron the worst game he will play all series, I would bet, is the one he played last night, and they won anyways. And we can't discount the emotion of it. We can't discount that Toronto has to be last night. How well did they sleep? How well Toronto players sleep last night? And you mentioned Dwayne Casey. How well did Dwayne Casey sleep thinking, oh, wait, why did I have Van Vliet in the game? You didn't mention that part this time. Guy with an injured shoulder, hadn't played in 45 minutes of real time. Biggest shot of the season, Fred Van Vliet. You go take it. How's Kyle Lowry feel? He only got 12 shots up?
Yeah.
LeBron erased him when he started guarding him? How do those guys rebound?
All those things might be true. But how we've analyzed Cleveland, we're not wrong. Like this, JR, this is the best. You tell me when the last game JR had like that. Tristan Thompson, you tell me the last game he had like that. Jeff Green, you tell me the last game he had like that. So we're analyzing what we're seeing, Nick. It's not I don't care if the Cavs win, the Cavs lose, boss. It don't matter to me. I'm analyzing how people play. And if the Cavs and their role players continue to play, which I believe they'll correct and go back to the way they've played, I believe Kevin Love, I'm not expecting him to play that level, but the new normal for him is lower your expectations. All right? 14 to 16 points a game, about 10 rebounds. That's what he's going to give you. So I think that for us who have looked at this, the Cavs haven't deserved for us to pick them. All right? They haven't played. Last night was the best basketball they have collectively played in a long, long time.
Quickly, have you given up on Kevin Love the way it seems like he's basically given up on himself?
No, I don't know if he's given up on himself. Two things I can say about Kevin Love. I do think the thumb is bothering him more than he's letting on. I was at several of those games against Indiana, and you could see him during breaks in the play kind of shaking that hand a little bit. I think there's some issues there. I also think a season's worth of playing the 5 position has worn him down a little bit. I mean, against Indiana, he's the guy blitzing on Oladipo. He's got to step out and chase these smaller guards out there, and that takes a physical toll on you in that game. But just to button up on Cleveland's supporting cast, your unflinching faith in LeBron James, I get. Look, I get that. Look, is LeBron going to play better than what he did? I don't know how you can look at this roster based on the entirety of this season and say that they're going to be the same type of players and Toronto isn't. You're right. Toronto is going to be tested mentally. If Toronto is a mentally weak team, they lose game 2. If LeBron is really in the Raptors' heads, they lose game 2. I don't believe it. I think this is a different Raptors team than we've seen in each of the last 3 years. I think they're mentally tougher. I think they're more talented. And look, I hate it when guys say we're the better team. Giannis did it after the Boston series, and Dwayne Casey did it last night. But in this case, I think Casey's right. I think they're the better team, and I think as long as they're mentally tough, they go out there, they win a game.
Let me ask you one quick question. Yeah. Do you think LeBron James, by himself, force of will alone, has the ability to win one game for the Cavs? Like, we got to have it against the Raptors. LeBron James has the ability to do that. 'Cause
not against Toronto. No.
Not against Toronto, because I do, and I think that's the mentality in game 2.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.